Hello, good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, February 24th. I'm going to take these off so you can actually see my eyeballs. And we are starting a new text today. We're starting the story of Ruby Bridges. So it's still about Ruby Bridges, but it's a different story. We're going to learn a little bit about it today. I'm going to go ahead and get us started because our video is a little long today because Miss Isabella reads the whole book to us. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Make sure that you have your knowledge and response journal out and ready, and that you have a pencil ready to go. Okay, everybody has a great afternoon, or have a great day today. And oops, okay, here we go. All right. Okay, so before we start the video, I do want to tell you that we are continuing with our content framing question, our essential question of how can people respond to injustice, and our content framing question for today's lesson, which remember is the small question, is how did Ruby Bridges respond to injustice? And what we're going to do today is we're going to ask and answer questions about the story of Ruby Bridges. So that is our learning goal for today, is to ask and answer questions. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen. Oops. All right, here we go.
Welcome back, powerful thinkers. I'm Sue Sabella, your Great Minds teacher. Let's see what we need for today. Today we'll need handout 19A, the narrative comparison, your journal, and a pencil. Please pause here to grab what you need and just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so all you are going to need is your journal and a pencil. You are not going to need handout 19A.
Today, we're going to begin to explore another version of the Ruby Bridges story. This version was not written by Ruby Bridges. It was written by Robert Coles. On the inside of the book, there's a quote from Ruby's mom, and I think it's an important quote to think about as we begin to explore. Our Ruby taught us all a lot. She became someone who helped change our country. She was part of history, just like generals and presidents are part of history. They're leaders, and so was Ruby. She led us away from hate, and she led us nearer to knowing each other, the white folks and the black folks. Ruby's mother said this and felt this way about her daughter. Let's get ready to explore this text more closely. This essential question or big idea will continue to guide our thinking as we continue in this module. Please pause here to read the question to yourself and just hit play when you're ready to continue.
So the essential question, which remember guys is the big question for the entire module, all of module 3, is how can people respond to injustice?
Although we'll be exploring a different version of Ruby Bridges' story, our focusing question is going to stay exactly the same. Let's read this question together. How did Ruby Bridges respond to injustice? The story of Ruby Bridges by Robert Coles is a biography. A biography is a true story about a person written by someone else. This story is also narrative nonfiction. It has elements of a narrative since it's told like a story, but it also has nonfiction elements, true information. Like the last text, this text is told as a narrative, and all the elements of a narrative text are included. What do I notice and wonder about this text? Please pause here to set up your journal and just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so this is where you are going to need a journal. You're going to need to go to page 139 in your journal today. There we go. Page 139. You need to put today's date on the top, the title of the story of Ruby Bridges, and then to make your notice and wonder chart all on page 139. There we go. I think you can see everything now. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and do your notice and wonder chart setup, and then hit play when you are ready to continue.
I'm going to read the story of Ruby Bridges aloud, and as I do, jot down what you're noticing. And remember, you're in charge. Pause me as often as you need to jot down what you're noticing. Just hit play when you're ready to move on. Ready? Here we go. Ruby Bridges was born in a small cabin near Tylertown, Mississippi. We were very poor, very, very poor, Ruby said. My daddy worked picking crops. We just barely got by. There were times when we didn't have much to eat. The people who owned the land were bringing in machines to pick the crops. So my daddy lost his job, and that's when we had to move. I remember us leaving. I was 4, I think. In 1957, the family moved to New Orleans. Ruby's father became a janitor. Her mother took care of the children during the day. After they were tucked in bed, Ruby's mother went to work scrubbing floors in a bank. Every Sunday, the family went to church. We wanted our children to be near God's Spirit, Ruby's mother said. We wanted them to start feeling close to Him from the very start. At that time, Black children and white children went to separate schools in New Orleans. The Black children were not able to receive the same education as the white children. It wasn't fair, and it was against the nation's law. In 1960, a judge ordered 4 Black girls to go to 2 white elementary schools. 3 of the girls were sent to McDonough 19. 6-year-old Ruby Bridges was sent to first grade in the William France Elementary School. Ruby's parents were proud that their daughter had been chosen to take part in an important event in American history. They went to church. We sat there and prayed to God, Ruby's mother said, that we'd all be strong and we'd have courage and we'd get through any trouble. And Ruby would be a good girl, and she'd hold her head up high and be a credit to her own people and a credit to all the American people. We prayed long and we prayed hard. On Ruby's first day, a large crowd of angry white people gathered outside the France Elementary School. The people carried signs that said they didn't want Black children in a white school. People called Ruby names. Some wanted to hurt her. The city and state police did not help Ruby. The President of the United States ordered federal marshals to walk with Ruby into the school building. The marshals carried guns. Every day, for weeks that turned into months, Ruby experienced that kind of school day. She walked to the France school surrounded by marshals, wearing a clean dress and a bow in her hair and carrying her lunch pail. Ruby walked slowly for the first few blocks. As Ruby approached the school, she saw a crowd of people marching up and down the street. Men and women and children shouted at her. They pushed toward her. The marshals kept them from Ruby by threatening to arrest them. Ruby would hurry through the crowd and not say a word. The white people in the neighborhood would not send their children to school. When Ruby got inside the building, she was all alone except for her teacher, Mrs. Henry. There were no other children to keep Ruby company, to play with and learn with, to eat lunch with. But every day, Ruby went into the classroom with a big smile on her face, ready to get down to the business of learning. She was polite and she worked well at her desk, Mrs. Henry said. She enjoyed her time there. She didn't seem nervous or anxious or irritable or scared. She seemed as normal and relaxed as any child I've ever taught. So Ruby began learning how to read and write in an empty classroom, an empty building. Sometimes I look at her and wonder how she did it, said Mrs. Henry. How she went by those mobs and sat here all by herself and yet seemed so relaxed and comfortable. Mrs. Henry would question Ruby in order to find out if the girl was really nervous and afraid, even though she seemed so calm and confident. But Ruby kept saying she was doing fine. The teacher decided to wait and see if Ruby would keep on being so relaxed and hopeful, or if she'd gradually begin to wear down, or even decide that she no longer wanted to go to school. Then one morning, something happened. Mrs. Henry stood by a window in her classroom as she usually did, watching Ruby walk toward the school. Suddenly, Ruby stopped, right in front of the mob of howling and screaming people. She stood there, facing all those men and women. She seemed to be talking to them. Mrs. Henry saw Ruby's lips moving and wondered what Ruby could be saying. The crowd seemed ready to kill her. The marshals were frightened. They tried to persuade Ruby to move along. They tried to hurry her into the school, but Ruby wouldn't budge. Then Ruby stopped talking and walked into the school. When she went into the classroom, Mrs. Henry asked her what happened. Mrs. Henry told Ruby that she'd been watching and that she was surprised when Ruby stopped and talked with the people in the mob. Ruby became irritated. I didn't stop and talk with them, she said. Ruby, I saw you talking, Mrs. Henry said. I saw your lips moving. I wasn't talking, said Ruby. I was praying. I was praying for them. Every morning, Ruby had stopped a few blocks away from school to say a prayer for the people who hated her. This morning, she forgot until she was already in the middle of the angry mob. When school was over for the day, Ruby hurried through the mob as usual. After she walked a few blocks and the crowd was behind her, Ruby said the prayer she repeated twice a day, before and after school. Please, God, try to forgive those people, because even if they say those bad things, they don't know what they're doing. So you could forgive them, just like you did those folks a long time ago when they said terrible things about you. Pause here to check your journal to make sure that you've jotted down everything that you notice And remember, you're in charge as a learner. You can always scroll back to listen again, either to one page or to the whole book. Just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so you should have been doing some notices while you were listening to the story. If you didn't, what I want you to do is go back and listen to the story again and actually do some notices, okay? I don't want you to do any wonders yet, just the notices, all right? I'm going to share oops, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to share some of my notices with you, okay? So I noticed that the book talks about some of the same laws of segregation, about how the black and white children were not allowed to go to school together in New Orleans. I noticed that Mrs. Henry worries about Ruby a lot. And I noticed that Ruby is so brave. When she stopped in the street in front of that crowd, she looked so small and little. And I noticed that Ruby prayed for the mean people. Okay, so those are things I noticed. Now, for the wonder part, we're going to use a wonder cube. Okay, I'm going to post this for you. If you have a printer, you may print this out and create the cube on your own. If you do not, you can just use the words that I roll. Okay, so the way this works, you are going to take your cube, or I'm going to take my cube and I'm going to roll it. Okay, so I landed on what? So my first wonder is going to use the word what to start my question. What is Ruby thinking when she first saw the angry moth? Okay, so that is my first wonder. So what you are going to do is you're going to use the word what, and you are going to create your own wonder question with the word what. If you do not make your own cube, if you make your own cube, you use whatever word you rolled on, okay? So I'm going to make another wonder question. When? Okay, when? Let's see. When? When did Ruby stop being afraid of the crowd? Okay, and then I want you to do one more. So you're going to do 3 wonder questions, okay? Oh, who? Let's see. Who? This is a tough one. What can I say for who? Let's see. Who? This really is a good question. Who do you think Ruby respected more? The Marshalls or Mrs. Henry? Well, the reason I asked that is because the Marshalls were there to keep her safe and protect her, but that was their job. So, but then Mrs. Henry voluntarily taught Ruby, even though she was a black child in a white school. So who do you think Ruby had more respect for? The Marshalls, who were technically just doing their job, or Mrs. Henry, who voluntarily took on that job. I don't know. Maybe the marshals volunteered for that job. I don't know. But that's a very thoughtful question. Okay, so you're going to make 3 wonders using the Wonder Cube. If you make your own Wonder Cube, you can use whichever question words come up. If you do not have the opportunity to make a Wonder Cube, use the words what, when, and who. So you're going to use what, when, and who. Please do not copy my questions, okay? I want you to come up with your own questions using those question words. Alrighty? Okay. I know some of those questions, they can be hard. Like that who question was really tricky for me even. All right, so let's get back to our video.
Pause here to take a stretch break and just hit play when you're ready to continue. Why are exploded moments in writing important? You'll be building on the skills that you learned about writing a narrative from first-person point of view. You'll combine these skills to zoom in on an important part of a story and explode it. Pause here to read over the narrative writing anchor chart. Just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so our narrative writing anchor chart, we have been building on this for several lessons. So what do narratives tell us, guys? They tell us stories. And what are the story elements that we have learned? We know that there's a setting, there are characters, there's action and a problem, and then there's an ending. And just this week, we learned about how to indicate time in our narratives by using temporal words like but, finally, first, then, next, at last, in the end. Those are all temporal words. Yesterday, today, tomorrow. Okay, let's see what else we're going to learn about the anchor chart for narrative writing today.
When we see the initials for escape, we're reminded that the action can come before a problem. But we know by reading narratives that sometimes the problem comes before the action. Today, we're going to examine a new form of narrative writing called an exploded moment. What do you think an exploded moment means? Pause here to tell your learning partner and just hit play when you're ready to continue. Explode means to suddenly put out energy or burst open. And moment is a short period of time. When writers write an exploded moment, they write about the character's thoughts, feelings, and actions in order to make one small moment very powerful, just like an explosion. The exploded moment provides elaboration through details so the reader can understand what a character is seeing, hearing, thinking, and feeling. It can turn facts into beautiful and exciting writing that makes the reader feel as if he or she was there. Please pause here to grab handout 19A and your pencil. If you don't have access to handout 19A, no worries. You can follow along on the screen. Just hit play when you're ready to continue. The directions tell us read both narratives. First, highlight the elements of escape in the first narrative. Then underline Ruby's thoughts and feelings in the second narrative. First, I'm going to read narrative 1 all the way through so you can hear it out loud. Then I'd like you to read narrative 1 to yourself. You can read it silently or read it out loud. And at that time, I'd like you to annotate or mark narrative 1 with the story elements from Scape. You can use the first letter for each of the story elements as you mark up this narrative. Ready? Here we go. I am going to the France Elementary School. My mom is walking with me. I see many white people yelling at us and holding signs. They do not want me to go to this school. The marshals keep us safe. I am going to walk into the school quickly. I made it inside. Now it's your turn to read over narrative 1 again on your own and mark it up with the story elements. Just pause here to do that now and hit play when you're ready to move to narrative 2.
Okay, so we are going to, we're going to mark this up. But in order for me to do this, I need to do something really quickly so that we can actually write on it. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Alrighty, now let's see. I'm going to go, close please. Okay, I'm going to open it up in Camera. Wait, I think I have Cammy over here. There it is. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna open from my computer. Find it, there it is. Okay, so I'm gonna make it a little bigger. All right, so we have the setting. All right, so now we're gonna do the characters. Who are the characters? Let's do a one. Shift. Okay, so I know Ruby is one of the, oh, I need to make that line bigger, don't I? Let's make it red so it shows up. Okay. Okay, so I am a character. Okay. What else do you guys see in here? Okay, we see Mom as the character. The Marshalls are characters. And who else? There's one more character. We see the white people are characters. That's right. All right, so we need to put a C. Oops, I don't want it to be transparent. I want it to be black. So character, that was a messy looking C. Character, character, character. All right, so now let's look back and look at the problem. What is the problem? Okay, so the problem is they do not want me to go to the white school. They do, make that, not want me to go to this school. Okay, so that is the problem. So we put a P on there. A little too fat probably, huh? All right, so what is the action? Okay, so we know that the action is that she just keeps on walking into the school quickly. She just keeps going. So here's the action. And then what is the ending of this narrative? Yeah, she made it inside. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's go back to the video, and now we're going to look at the second narrative.
First, I'm going to read narrative 2 out loud. Then I'd like you to read narrative 2 to yourself silently or out loud. And as you do, I'd like you to locate or find Ruby's thoughts, feelings, or actions. As you find them, you have a choice. You can mark that up on your sheet, or if you're following along on the screen, you can point to the icons on the right side of the screen as they happen in this narrative. Ready? Here we go with narrative 2. I am scared to go to France Elementary School. It makes me feel better to walk with my mom. I see many white people yelling at us and holding signs. Why are they being so mean? I don't understand why they do not want me to go to this school. The marshals keep us safe. That makes me feel better too. I want to cry, but I will be brave. We try to get in the school quickly. Pause here to read narrative 2 and also to locate or find Ruby's thoughts, feelings, and actions. If you have a copy of the handout, you can mark up the passage with the word thought, feeling, or action as you find them throughout the narrative. If you don't have your own copy and you're following along on the screen, no worries. You can just point to each icon on the side as you find Ruby's thoughts, feelings, and actions. Pause here to do that work and just hit play when you're ready to wrap up our video lesson. It's important to remember as a writer, whenever you're writing an exploded moment.
Okay, sorry. All right, so let's go back. We're going to do narrative 2. I think I have to. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Here we go. Add media from my computer. This one. Right here. Oh, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Add media, computer. Here. Okay, it's not working. Why isn't it working, guys? Oh, I keep not clicking it fast enough. Here we go. Click to drop. There. Okay. Can I move it? Maybe I need to delete that one. Let me add page. Oh, it's not going to let me do that, huh? Well, I'm trying out some new stuff with you guys. Stuff that I learned how to do last week at my little training. But I don't understand why it won't. Why won't it let me move it? Okay, we're just gonna make a new one. How about that? This seems the easiest way to do it right now. I'll have to figure that out later. Okay, this one big. All right, so we're going to look at her thoughts, her feelings, and her actions. All right, so what is something that you see just right off the top about her thoughts? Okay, well, I see that she is scared. Okay, so I'm going to underline scared. That's a feeling. Do you guys see any other feelings? Well, right here it says she feels better. Right here it says feel better. Oh, she wants to cry. All right, so those are some things. Okay, now let's look at some thoughts. What are some things that she's thinking? Right here, she's thinking, why are they being so mean? That's a thought. And here she says she doesn't understand. All right, now let's think about some actions. What are some things that she does here that are actions? Says she will be brave and she's going to get into the school. Those are some actions that she does. Okay.
Based on that historical event. Today we learned that we can add details to narrative writing through the use of exploding moments. Exploding moments describe thoughts, feelings, and actions. You are growing so much as a writer, and by adding exploding moments to your narrative writing, your writing becomes even more powerful and more exciting. As we continue in this module, you'll continue to build and develop that skill. You worked extremely hard, and I am so proud of you. Keep working hard, and I will see you again very soon.
Okay, so that is the end of today's video lesson. So you are going to make sure that you do your notice and wonder chart today on the story of Ruby Bridges, and you're going to take a picture of it and upload to the Google Classroom slide that I provide for you. And that's all that you have to do today is just the notice and the wonder chart, okay? So today's secret word or the magic word, I just found these in the music room and I'm really excited. They are symbols. I love these things. Miss Butler's going to order some for me. So that's the magic word for today is symbols, okay? So I hope you guys have a great afternoon, a great day, and I will see you later for phonics class, okay? So everybody have a great time today. Bye.